Hi everyone, it's Jazz here. This is just a change, it's just scenery for a change. But anyway, I wanted to do this video as to why I'm relearning Arabic and also discussing some of the reasons I quit and what I'm kind of doing to kind of counteract that going forward. Especially if you are learning a language that is completely different from what you normally speak or other languages that you already know. So we'll get into that. So, first and foremost, Arabic is actually my 10th language. And I started learning it, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. It was sometime after I got out of college. It was just one of those languages I kind of just was learning because I was curious. And that was kind of actually how I started learning German. Because I was like, how does this language work? How do people read that? How do people use that language? I was just more after curiosity. So that was really why I started it. And the fact is, it was something different because I felt like I wanted to challenge myself to do something that was completely out of my comfort zone because I had been learning Latin-based Germanic languages for years. So, yeah. And so why I quit? It was one of those languages where the reason why I quit really had to do with the fact that it just wasn't something I needed at the time, because right around the pandemic when everything went down, I ended up moving to Germany during that time, and I just didn't really need it. Because I knew someone who spoke it, a friend of mine, she and I went to college together, and she also did my hair every so often because she did hairstyling before she went to FITM. And more than anything, she spoke it, but she didn't write it. And she said her sister attempted to take a class on writing it and just was like, oh, like, this is weird. So, I don't know, just based on the nature of it. And then I just realized it was because for me, from my psycholinguistic perspective, is that when other languages have the same letters, you can generally sound everything out. It's just a matter of knowing the rules of like, okay, this letter is not pronounced the same way as it is in English in this way, like the changes in the sounds and the vowels or whatever, accent marks and things like that. It's like, oh, okay, cool. But then it's just like, it's a whole different way of writing. And then it's a whole set of vocabulary. So I just was like, I'm just going to focus on the other ones that I need right now. Like I was teaching French. I had been teaching someone German at one point. I still am teaching someone Spanish. So the main thing is that it just wasn't relevant to me at the time. Now I realize is that I want to say that I'm picking it back up now because, especially like it was kind of inspired by the whole Israel-Hamas war because of what's going on. And I remember thinking like, because that originally my original plan years ago was to learn Arabic and then maybe go into Hebrew and then maybe go into other language like Aramaic or something like biblical languages. But since I don't know where the crossover came over, but there's like, they're both languages that write from right to left. So it was something different. It's a whole different way of thinking, a whole different thing. So I also want to say that the reason why I consider it as a language that I speak, because it is something I attempted to learn. I feel like if you know something in the language, then that's something that you at least know. I mean, like most people, they know how to say bonjour. Anytime I'm teaching someone who's an absolute beginner, has never learned French a day in her life, and she's like, I know how to say bonjour. I know how to say oui, because those are things that we've heard before. But I still consider it a language because it's something that I still have to get back to. Because the thing is, I say that it's still a language because I still need to get back into it. And since it's lower on the totem pole, it's just natural that it's going to be a language I'm not going to know as well as the first 5 because I spend more time with friends and people who speak those languages. So, and more in depth is like what I consider fluency, because I think that when someone says this is a language I speak versus saying I'm fluent in this language, those are two different things. Because like honestly, I mean, it is, yeah, you can say something in this language. So that's just kind of like a basic minimum standard, is that you can say something in that language. You know how to communicate something. But being fluent is a whole other different definition. And I did a whole video on what in my video of what it means to learn a language on your own. And so that is a video that I will lead you towards to go into more in depth with that. Okay. So I just want to bring up a couple points in terms of how this language has been, how I've had to readjust my strategies in terms of learning this language. So the first point I will just say is that I'm going to talk about the challenges and the fun points, because first of all, it's a new alphabet. So you kind of have to figure out, oh, this sound means what? So again, because it's a whole different way of writing. It's been fun to do that because I've actually, like, with learning about how the writing system is, first of all, learning the alphabet is the easiest thing you can do because it's really just, they give you letters. I've been doing some packets. I signed up for a 1-year Premium Plus membership for Arabic Pod 101. I have used Arabic Pod 101 or the Innovative Language Company. I've seen some of their videos on YouTube, and that's kind of how I got started with a lot of the languages that I know, just to get me a foundation. I will just say I probably might do a video on that, on how effective they are by the end of the year when I finish that 12 months. And my goal is every day, like, do a new lesson and do something different. Every so often, like, change things up. So I'm not like focusing on, right now I'm focusing on writing and sounding out the alphabet, which has been pretty easy to do. I'm just literally just tracing a book. I actually got, they have a bunch of printouts. So I printed a couple of things, a couple of workbooks and that I have access to, and I just would just trace the letters, and then it would be like, okay, write it out on your own. And so I would write them out on my own, and so just kind of getting used to the alphabet. And the alphabet, it's not so much as, it kind of reminds me of like cursive, because one of the things that they talked about in one of their videos was that the alphabet, it's kind of like writing in cursive, but the only difference is that in Arabic, cursive is not optional. So it's like in the United States, I remember, like, when I was growing up, we were learning cursive in grade school, like for kindergarten, first, second, third grade, learning how to write in cursive. And it was a requirement. You could not write anything in block letters. But it's kind of like getting back into that. And it's just very much smooth to write, because it's like, oh, like everything links together. And every letter, you learn it from, there's 4 different forms. There's like the isolated form, then there is the initial form, like when it starts a word, then there is the medial, so like when that letter is, how that letter is written if it's in the middle of a word, and then there's also the final, so what that looks like at the end of a word. So that way, it's because it's going to be written differently, and so it's kind of like, well, what is that? It's like, oh, it's the same sound as this. Oh, So things are kind of written. It's kind of like how we have capital letters, but then also we have letters in the middle of words and we write them a certain way. So that's kind of interesting. It's mostly just tracing. And I will say it's pretty easy to sound out. The thing about it is that there's no vowels, like there's no written vowels. Only one is like aleph, which is like kind of like the ah sound in our alphabet, like A. But the vowel signs are usually implied, or you can vowelize them. There's but normally, if you're watching the news or reading the newspaper, you're not going to see those vowel accent marks because they're implied, because typically a native speaker knows what these words sound like. So they don't need it. It's more so as like a beginner thing, like that they teach you in grade school. Like, yeah, there's accent. So if an accent is above a letter, it means like ah sound. If it's below the letter, it means an e sound. And then there's like this little like 9 looking symbol, and that one is like an oo sound. So like if it's above that letter, it would be like, if it, like for the letter B, if it's like it would be ba, B, and then boo with that little thing. And then there's this like backwards number 2, which is like a glottal stop. So it's like you kind of stop. They describe it, the glottal stop, as like that sound that's in between, like uh-oh. So that stop, and it's going to come from the deep of your throat. The only thing is that there's also multiple letters for one sound. Like there's the B, like the letter B, ba, but then there's also another letter, it's written completely differently, and it's ba, ta. No, it's a T. Sorry, the T, so it's ta, and then there's ta, and then there's a th. There's a letter for a th, the TH sound, and then there's like another one for th. I'm like, why are these the same? And it's like, they call them dark letters, which is basically like when the sound is a little bit deeper. It's like it comes more from the throat. So that I think is really interesting. So, and then there also, when you're translating and you're writing out vocabulary, or when you're writing things out, there's also the Romanized form of writing it, which is when they take the Arabic letters and they put it in Latin letters so I can understand, or I can sound it out, so you can sound it out that way. And it's so interesting to see that, because it's like whenever you're writing out vocabulary or writing out sentences, I'm writing it in the Arabic letters, I'm writing it in Latin letters, and then I'm writing it in English. So it's like constantly, it's not like, this word to this word. It's like, yeah, but because you may not be able to know what's going on here, we have it. And it's so weird because it confuses my mind, because I'm like, I'm reading left to right to left to read the Arabic letters, but then when I look at the Romanized version, it's from left to right because it's written in Latin alphabet, the typical alphabet we use, that I use. And so then I'm like, we're writing this way, and then I get confused as to which direction we're going because I'm looking at both. So I've kind of gotten used to having to mostly write. I just decided, I'm not going to do the Romanized version. I know what these sound like. So I actually ended up just writing it in Arabic letters, and then I would just write it out in, English, what the translation was. And then I would just try to use those vowel signs so I could remember to sound it out myself rather than relying on the Latin letters, because I want to be able to read and understand the letters itself. As a challenge, it's really hard for me to figure out which dialect of Arabic I'm going to learn. I've made up my mind that I want to learn MSA, the Modern Standard Arabic. Or the thing about that is that it's like every dialect is almost like a different language in itself. Like learning Egyptian Arabic, like they have a different way of pronouncing, not only pronouncing things, but actually saying it. Like saying hi is like a completely different word. I learned marhaban is hello in Modern Standard Arabic, but then I think in Egypt they say ahlan, and then there's this assalamu alaikum. So like in terms of like asking how someone is or something like that. And then Moroccan Arabic, they say something different because they do teach Arabic. They have lessons for Arabic, for Egyptian Arabic, and then Moroccan Arabic. I really was leaning more towards Moroccan Arabic because it's a lot of it's similar to French. So it's easier for me to kind of like go back and forth with that, because I'm like, oh, that sounds similar to a word I know, even if it's written in letters I don't know, it still sounds like Lebanese Arabic. I know that for that, because I know Lebanon, they do speak French there. So it's kind of like a way to translate, because a lot of influences from like colonization are still there. So no matter what, it's kind of like, you're still able to, understand what you're, to really get a sense of like which dialect you're trying to learn, or which one is going to be easier for you to learn. So that's the thing. And I'm thinking about mainly like Egyptian Arabic, because I really want to be able to get connected to like Al Jazeera, because I know that I really am interested to see how different countries are portraying media of things going around the world, because I know I primarily watch France 24. I have gotten into Info Canada, and then Al Jazeera is like another one, because I know France 24, they have their news available in Arabic, but Al Jazeera is because it's based in that region, in the region in which all of this stuff is going on with Israel and Palestine and whatnot. It's like kind of able to see like how people are actually reporting it from their own, because depending on the company, I know that sometimes they may run a report certain news or certain aspects. Like even in America, you can just tell that there's like, based on the way that news is presented, there is some type of bias that's in there. Which is ironic, because I just finished reading or listening to the audiobook for Noise, A Flaw in Human Judgment. So the thing about it is like when you're looking at all these news sources, it's just a matter of like seeing what you are what are you taking from it? Like, what kind of judgment do I want to make of what's going on? Especially when it comes to like political points. I really want to talk about how I've been able to figure out some of this stuff. Because my thing about it is just like with my psycholinguistic brain is I have to figure out how to process it myself. Like, how do I get this to the point to where my brain can process it and understand it? Because I'm trying to get to that. At least I want to get it to at least like an A1, A2 or B1 level. That's ideal. Because once you're at B1, you can pretty much survive without English or whatever your native language is. So And there, I've noticed that cheat sheets are useful because I download a lot of them from the site and I use them. So it's mostly just having them so that like when I'm writing out my own sentences, I have references to what I'm writing. Like my thing is, at this point, I'm just trying to figure out how to write a full sentence. You know, when you're an absolute beginner, your point is that can I complete something? Like not just a phrase or an expression, but can I write or even say a whole sentence or have at least a basic conversation? Memorizing does not work for me because I just feel like I'm already lost as it is, you know? So trying to figure that out. So like I said, I've been able to sound everything out. I've been able to kind of understand that, like I get words of the day. And so that I always copy that word down in my notebook. I copy that down and then I write what the definition is in English, no romanization. And then I put the vowel accents on there. So at least I know how to pronounce it because I'm still getting used to it. Like if you were to take the vowel sounds out, I would not know when you pronounce the ah, the e, and the oo. I wouldn't know that, you know. So I vowel with that vowel frame, and then also from there, I also am writing out sentences because I give sentences as well with that word in it. So it's like you're not just given words, which I've always taught on. Do not ever give someone vocabulary and then not explain the different contexts that they're able to use in, because it's just words. So I really like that. I figured out that this is a masculine and feminine language. It's a gendered language. So especially when you're just talking to someone as a female, when you're talking to someone as a man, there's differences. And so I've kind of seen a pattern where they'll add like a ah, like an AH to like an adjective or to a profession or something. Like if I wanted to say I'm a teacher, it's like you would add this ah at the end. There's some other ones or ina in some words. So you kind of know like there's certain letters that I see. I'm like, this is a female talking, you know. So I've kind of figured out that there are like the genders. I still keep my alphabet chart because that way, like when I'm trying to figure out what this is, and I also kept the alphabet writing system, like the writing system workbook from the website, because that way I can at least go back and see where I'm getting confused. Like I'd never seen that letter written that way before. And then I find out it's just a medial version of something, you know, of a letter. The sentence structure is pretty simple because it follows generally the same. Even though it's written backwards, it's still the same. Like subjects are implied, but you can write a subject, and then it's like the verb, and then something. It's pretty much the same standard way that we write our sentences. So it's easy to kind of learn how that sentence structure works. So grammar is really just not. There's no point in learning sentence structure when you kind of have an idea of what it is. It's just, to me, it's just fill in the blank with the words. So I'm continuing with those vocab words, the charts, translation tools. You know, to be able to communicate what I need to say, you know. So that's really what I'll say in terms of what I've figured out so far. So my other thing is like a time frame. So my schedule on this is, so I have a 12-month membership, and I want to make sure I'm not wasting my money, because that they had a sale since it was January, and it was like I paid like $173 and something cents for this 1-year membership. So that I will see how effective it is, but that's just how much the investment was for me up front. So I never have to pay that again until next year. But going through it, my goal is an hour per day in my schedule. I put it in my schedule because I go through my task list every day. An hour, and then also I try to post on like my Insta stories of what's going on, like to say, hey, you know, like this is one update, because it keeps me accountable to know that like I've put it out there on the internet that I'm relearning this language, and that I'm going to stick to it, so I can see how useful, how useful this program is. And so that's where I'm putting my updates on to keep me accountable, because if you're just saying, I'm going to learn this language, but then you have no structure to it. And so and like I said, for me, I'm living proof, because first of all, I love languages, and I have different reasons for all the different languages that I've learned. But for me, it's just mostly like trying to make sure I'm consistent, because that's the key thing, and trying to be able to find ways to be able to learn it without having to get frustrated. So especially when you're learning it on your own, that's the whole thing. And then also my goal is in the next month or so, like as I start feeling more comfortable speaking, you know, I mean, And on the website, they did like assessments to say like to place where you were at. And some of the questions were like speaking exercises. And I was like, I have no idea. I know how to say hi, thank you, and have a good day. So yeah, so that's not very helpful. So, but basically I want to start getting to a point where I can at least create a few sentences. So at that point I can start seeking out like some friends or people that I know. And kind of sharing my Arabic with them. Like I said, I still have no idea what dialect I'm going to learn, so it's just kind of like, I don't even know. I'm just going to stick with modern standard Arabic and go from there. So when it comes to like trying to learn a language again and getting back into it, there's things you realize, oh, I don't know how. You might have moments where it's like, I don't know, or I don't remember how to say something, because I have that in German sometimes. I'm like, oh, how do I say that? The word comes back to me, but it's just kind of like, oh, how do I say that? Because I haven't used it anymore. So just to kind of clarify, there's an absolute difference between language learning and language maintenance. So sometimes, like for me, like I said, this was a language I learned at a few points in my time, and I points at one time and just kind of fell off. But there have been times like when I've come back to German, for example, like with my workout videos and yoga, I do videos in German. So one of the things I want to say, my last thing I will say is that, again, with German, I know the words. I just have to remember and recall. Arabic, you give me something in Arabic, I have no idea. So that's the point, is trying to get to a point where the language, I can get to the point where it's just not just scribbled letters on a page. I want to get to a point where it actually is coherent. So I'm going to keep you updated with that. And in the meantime, I'll talk to you guys in the next video.